Shipping containers. They're a bit too square. I want mine to be more like the Games Workshop models. That whole process began with a proof of concept because I had no idea how I was going to build this thing. Once I'd had the basics kind of figured out, I just jumped straight into building a test model which allowed me to refine the building process. And I'm going to share that with you today, but more than that, I'm going to give you a cheat sheet so you can build your own. The first thing I needed to do after taking some measurements from the test model was head to my computer and build a cutting sheet. And that turned out like this. We need to get this stuck to some 5mm foam board, but don't do what I did. Don't use PVA glue because your board will warp. What you want to do is use a glue stick. Then we get a knife, preferably with a nice new sharp blade, and we're going to cut the pieces out. Now we've got all the pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, it's time to start putting it together. The first thing we need to do is build the main side panels for the shipping container. We do that using the large rectangles, and we're going to trace that shape out onto some corrugated card. Just like this, cut inside the line so it's the exact fit. Then we're going to glue these two things together. I'm going to do that using another glue stick. Once that's done, we need to add these bits, whatever they're called. We're going to do that using chipboard and another cutting sheet that I made, using the thinnest bars at the top of the sheet. I glue these into place using super glue, but I don't cut them to measure. I glue them in place and then take a pair of old snips and then cut them to fit once they're already in situ. Then, using the medium bar from the second cut sheet, we split each of the side panels into thirds. Grab the trusty glue stick one more time, take the smaller octagon, and we're going to glue it to the large square pieces where you can see the outline of the octagon, and where it needs to go is already on the cutting sheet. Then we're going to take a little PVA glue and apply it around the longer sides of each of the octagons so that we can glue the side panels into place. We'll use some pins to hold everything in place while the PVA glue dries, and what you should end up with is something that looks like this. You'll notice that using the same size medium bar from the cutting sheet, I've covered the exposed foam from the main square sections. I've just glued that in place using PVA glue, let the whole thing dry overnight, and now it's time to fill the gaps. This is pretty much exactly the same process. The only difference here is there's no foam board. These pieces are not on the cutting sheets. You can just measure them, cut them to fit. I've done that purposely because there'll be tolerances between, somebody might have misplaced something ever so slightly, something might not be aligned up. So not all of your gaps will be the same size. So this time it's up to you to measure the gaps, cut the pieces to fit, then follow exactly the same process, glue the bars on with super glue. Once they're nice and solid, place the whole thing in the gap, and then we're just going to take super glue, make sure that the join is nice and solid so none of this is going to come apart. Then we add the shorter pieces of crossbar, and you should end up with this. This bit isn't on the cutting sheets either. I made this to customize mine. I made two button control panels to go on either end of my shipping containers. All we need to do then is take the two large octagons, glue them to either end of the shipping container, making sure they are in the middle, and then taking the largest bar from the chipboard cutting sheet to outline that octagon, and of course, if you want, stick a couple of control panels in. The next thing to do is glue 2 trimmed down cocktail sticks onto each of the 4 doors. Now we take some filler, I think in America you call it spackle. We're going to fill in any of the gaps, we're going to smooth out some of the surfaces, round off some of the corners, and then now we're at the final part of the build. I've glued what I call the ribs on. I've detailed them, covering the exposed foam with the chipboard. On the bottom I've also added these small pieces that are little bits of cut up straw. In my mind these are thrusters because this shipping container is being dropped from above and the thrusters ensure a safe landing. Now we can get on with painting, and I'm going to base it on the same paint job I did on my square shipping container. Hopefully I do a better job because I learnt a lot doing that one, and I'm going to start off with a black, a red, a green and some transfers. As you can see, I've painted the control panel. The inside is black, green button, red button. I've painted the thrusters silver, and at the moment I'm using an Army Painter dark tone wash just to put some dark tones where I think dirt would naturally gather on the shipping container. Then we're going to take a small piece of a scourer and some brown paint to start stippling the brown paint onto the container to start adding the effect of rust. I repeated that exact same process with an orange paint and then a little bit of silver just to bring the metal through. Now it's time to add an oil wash. I'd never done this before until I painted the square container. All you need is a little bit of oil paint, in this case burnt umber, and some white spirits. Get the two mixed up all good and proper, and then just start slapping it on. I didn't think my wash was quite dark enough at this point, so I did go back in with a slightly thicker wash, just using less white spirit just to darken it up even further. You can actually clean it up as well. You can either use a cotton bud dipped in white spirit or even just your fingertip, and that'll lift some of the excess away just to clean it up a little bit. That wash does leave grime everywhere, so we're going to get some demonic yellow, hit it up with a little dry brush just to bring some of that colour back so it's not just complete grime. After that, I then repeated the stippling process with the scourer, the brown paint, the orange paint and the silver paint to ensure that the rust towards the top of the container stood out above the wash, above the grime, so visually you could see the rust effect much clearer. Then we're going to add some technical astro granite along the base just to simulate some earth. Once that's dried, we paint the astro granite brown, then I get to sign it. I like to sign every single piece that I make. Then we're going to break out the dark tone wash again. We're going to use this to line the panels. So we add a little bit of depth, a little bit of shadow, a little bit more dirt, and we're going to pick out some selective little streaks to add to the sides and onto the top of the shipping container, just for that little extra bit of detail. Then we're going to add a little flock and get on with the glamour shots. While making this video, I've worked on 4 different models to get to the final result. It's been a lot of fun and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I've already got plans to use these 2 containers for future dioramas, one of them based on this little kit bashed orc. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I have made 2 cutting sheets available for you, one for each of the 2 shipping containers. Just check the link in the description. They are free to download, feel free to customise them as I have and I will do again. All I ask is that you find me on Instagram, tag me in any of the photographs of your versions of these, because I really want to see what you do with them. What do you think of the final Sci-Fi design? Let me know in the comments below, I'm really curious to know what you think, and especially if I can actually make it better. If you have enjoyed the video, or at least found it useful, please hit that like button. That way, with a bit of luck, more of our fellow gamers may get to see this video and build their own Sci-Fi shipping container. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell to be the first to know when the next video drops. See you next time, and thanks for watching.